Hello, everyone. Welcome to Borderless Conversations. My name is Mac. Konnichiwa. I'm here based out in Tokyo, and I'm the CEO of Borderless Translations.
Hello, สวัสดีค่ะ This is Elizabeth from Un Designs and I'm based in San Diego, California. And today we actually have a special guest with us. I interrupted Mac there. But Shoko, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes. Hello, everyone. My name is Shoko. I'm currently going to a university in Japan.
Welcome.
Cool. And then, so just to add Shoko has been interning for us for about 4 months now. She's been doing a great job.
Oh, thank you.
All right. So what's today's topic?
So today's topic, well, since we have Shoko here, I want to kind of talk about education. What is our, education system like? What are some similarities? What are some differences? And, today we kind of get an in-depth view of the Japanese education system. So are you ready, Shoko?
Yes, a bit nervous, but yes.
All right, so today we're going to talk a little bit about education. So we're going to start from elementary all the way to university and maybe beyond. And so now that we have Shoko here, we get an inside view of the Japanese education system. Shoko?
Okay, so when I was little, I used to go to an American elementary school, but I moved to Japan when I was in 3rd grade. So I attended elementary school from 3rd grade to 6th grade. So in Japan, there are 6 grades in elementary school from 1st grade to 6th grade.
Oh, nice. So you were born in America?
Yes, I was born in America and I lived there until I was 9.
Oh, okay. What area?
Well, I lived in California, actually,
Hey.
so very close to Elizabeth, maybe.
Yeah. Do you find that there was a tough or maybe just like a different transition when going from American elementary school to Japanese elementary school?
It was pretty tough. Of course, the language was different, and I had to take all the classes in Japanese, so that was one of the biggest. That was really hard, but also all the system was really different. So yes, I'd love to talk about that.
Okay. Now,
Nice.
what do you mean by the system? Like, is it like a different teaching style, or?
Like, for example, in America, I think there wasn't that much time where we were like sitting in our desk, like studying. But in Japan, we have like a lot of time. Like we have from first period to maybe 5 or 6th period. And we have all like math, Japanese, social study, science. And we have a lot of time like studying and like listening to what my teacher is saying. So that was pretty hard at first to like sit in my desk and studying all the time. So that was pretty different. And also like the way we serve lunch and like we have cleanup time, there was a lot of difference.
Oh, tell me about lunch. I'm always interested in food.
Of course. So in Japan, so in America, we all brought our lunch boxes to school, but in Japan, it may differ in which school you go to. But my school, we had this lunch served called the kyushoku, and we all get the lunch made from the school, and we all took turns to serve the lunch, and we all ate the same food, and it was really we learned how to like serve food for others, so that was a really important thing I learned. But sometimes it was hard to eat all the food because we have like things that we don't like, and that was kind of a hard thing for me.
Okay, that makes sense. It sounds like the system in Japan was definitely just a lot more, I would say, like structured or formalized than maybe the public schools in the US, or at least in California that you attended.
Yes. Very for like structuralized, yes.
So for Elizabeth, what kind of lunches do you remember eating in elementary school?
Well, kind of similarly, my first couple years were in the U.S. and then I went to Thailand. Um, the difference, however, is that I didn't go to a public school in Thailand, so I went
Hmm.
to an international school, and we had a cafeteria. But you it's like a lot of food courts in Thailand. You go to the coupon counter and you exchange your money for coupons and use those coupons at different things. So, like my impression of a food court there is very different than a food court in the US. It's not just fast food chains. And so that's what was available for lunch in Bangkok. Whereas in the US, my mother would pack me lunch. There was always a cafeteria available, but it's you only did that if there was no time to get lunch or if you're on school's like free meal plan or something like that. And it's usually like reheated pizza, like very super stale. It's very, very generic. It's like, here's a slice of reheated frozen pizza, here's a box of milk or juice, and here's an apple or a banana, and that's your full option. I do remember, however, and this is probably more cultural, like I had a very mixed neighborhood, but kids are really great at making fun of each other based on whether you had the cool lunch or not. So I remember, like, my mother gave me great food to send to school. Like she's the kind of person where she hates cooking, but she wanted to be very meticulous about like, oh, what is proper balanced nutrition for my kid? And so she would pack a very balanced lunchbox, but people would be like, ew, what's that food? Your food smells. Sometimes even before I've opened my lunchbox, because they assume it's not a cool lunch. It's not Lunchables or a peanut butter and jelly sandwich or something that you can trade as social currency with other kids. So I think like that lunch was kind of a social status thing when I was in elementary school too. But in Thailand, it was like hot food. And since it was an international school, you had different counters you can go to. So the food was different every day, but you could say, I want rice porridge, or I want, chicken and rice, or whatever hot food they had there, or I want like spaghetti, or I want, whatever pasta dish, or I want a sandwich. You actually had a lot of options. It was pretty gourmet. I mean, just how much coupons you were willing to pay to get your food. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I definitely have to agree on the Lunchables, right? That brings it back. It did feel like, depending on what food you brought and how viable it was to trade, it definitely made a difference in terms of your status. So I mean, PB&J, Lunchables, the pizza Lunchables, those were premium. I never really liked. Oh yeah, exactly. I never really liked the sandwich ones because it was just like what, Ritz crackers with like when you eat it, you're just like, this is what I paid for. All right.
Right. Oh, Capri Suns.
Oh yes.
Then you were like the king of like the lunchtime. And people would try to bribe you. It's like, can I have your Capri Sun? I'll give you like 2 of my things for your 1 Capri Sun.
I really agree with the status thing too, because it's not about my experience, but when one of my friends a Japanese friend who went to America, and we all brought our lunchbox. And in Japan, there's this rice ball, called onigiri, and we usually put like seaweed outside, so it turns like black. There's like a black rice ball, and then like my friend was like, "What is that black thing you're eating?" And they were like I heard like their friends thought that it was like a snowball or something, and they started to like throw it, and I was like,
so mad. You threw my food. You better get me a new.
Not my rice ball.
Very cultural difference.
That would have started a fight in America.
The whole cafeteria is just
food fight.
I had a Japanese best friend. I went to a K-12 school, so she was good friend from pretty much when I got to Thailand to when I left. And she always brought food. Like there was very, very rarely where she didn't have like a nice little bento packed, but we also had a snack time. So she would just sit there and like it was kind of meditative. She would sit there, slowly lay out the seaweed, and then pinch rice, and then the sesame seed, whatever, and she would just share. So that was kind of like, we had a 15-minute break time, and that was our snack. Her mother eventually knew that she would share with me, so we'd give her extra to pack to bring.
Oh, so much cultural differences. Like if you go to international school, that's a really good point.
Nice. And then I know you mentioned, Shoko, that what was it? That American schools are a bit more free. So I remember always having like recess, right? Is that a thing in elementary school in Japan?
Yes. For me, well, I had like first period to maybe like fifth period, and between we had like 10 minutes to like maybe, well, usually we had to like switch classrooms, so we usually used that. But after the second period, we had like a recess time, like for like 15 minutes. And then during lunchtime, after lunch, we have lunch break, and we usually go outside and play. So yeah, it's basically the same.
Well, but you get 2 breaks. We only got like one.
Oh, really?
After lunch break, because normally it's like, you know, how much of a break you got depending on how fast you ate your lunch. But I guess it makes sense. You have to clean up too, so you don't really have a break time during the time.
Okay, I guess that's fair. Yeah.
Cool.
Nice. So then let's see. So that's elementary. Let's talk a little bit about middle school. So I feel like middle school for everyone is where you really start to grow into your personality. And I think, you know, at least for American schools, that's when I got really into like Pokemon, like Yu-Gi-Oh, all of the, it's funny that we got so into like Japanese like animation, Dragon Ball Z, Sailor Moon. But I'm also probably dating myself with these comments. But yeah, I guess what was the hype in middle school, and you know, when you were in middle school, and then let's talk a little bit about, I don't know, trends. Yeah. Choco, or yep.
Well, for me, middle school was still a bit not so free.
Oh, okay.
It became kind of more like, the biggest characteristic of middle school is we started to wear school uniforms to school, and so we couldn't wear what we wanted to wear, so that was not really a good point. But yes, and another thing is club activities started, and we in Japan, most of the students we get to pick different club activities. There was like track and field, or volleyball, baseball, basketball, and also indoor club activities like art club, or the band, or maybe chorus. There's a lot of club activities, and usually the students pick one, and it really, and we have to spend a lot of time doing that club activity, because like some club activities, it started from the morning practice from like 7 a.m. and then like after school we have practice until like 6 p.m. So
7
like,
a.m.
Yeah. So yeah, middle school was like a lot about club activities. Everyone's running, everyone's practicing a lot. Did you have any club activities or anything in middle school?
In middle school, so I didn't really go to a normal middle school. I went to a fine arts school. So for us, it was more about, there were some after school activities. Like I really like theater. So I did a lot of like improv. I was in a couple of plays. But beyond that, I guess there wasn't really any sports, right? I did do a lot more sports in high school, but we can talk about that later.
Yeah, my school had a lot of options for after school activities. There wasn't anything necessarily built into the curriculum directly that wasn't already mandatory. So the way ours was structured was you had your sort of general classes, like everybody had English, everybody had at that point like a social studies kind of class, and you didn't get to pick your specific sort of field of study until further on. But we also all had one art class, one music class, and then one drama class. So like you all of those were already mandatory, and then your PE class says in the school I went to would rotate seasonally through different sports. So, you know, regardless of whether you are good or bad at something, it was mandatory to participate. But, you know, for the folks who were really interested, you can optionally add on like after school activities and all that. And those are free, and usually I would say it was more similar to like a staff sponsored club, where if a particular teacher had a skill set they wanted to share, then they would propose it to the school would approve, and then they would be like the counselor or the teacher for that particular skill set. So it was anything from having martial arts class like after school, or to I think there was like a sewing club or a crochet club and things like that too. So it was really kind of a wide, and then there were some people who practiced like language or whatever. So it wasn't so formalized into the main school curriculum, but I do feel that solidified the types of crowds you hung around. Granted, like my school was small, as in it was a large population because it was from kindergarten all the way to year 13. But each grade level probably had like 80 to maybe 100 students. So when I say like, you know, you picked your group, but you were always interacting with the same people.
Yes.
When it's that though for me is probably I think that the notable difference is those were the only places where I interacted a lot with people outside my own year. Because usually it would be like you would hang out with your own year level and you'd have classes with your own year level, but those activities were the only ones where I would hang out with anyone from like elementary school kids to like, you know, seniors about to graduate, depending on what the activity was.
Yeah, that's kind of similar to Japan too, because so about the club activities, we pick one from when we're in the first grade in middle school, and it's ideal to stay in that club activity for until the third year. And so I think we kind of learn like the sense of belonging during that club activity, and it was really strange because we have to be really polite to the seniors. We use like keigo, polite words to the seniors, and we have to call them senpai, like as in seniors, like Max senpai or what is it? so I guess we learn how to like thrive in the hierarchical society in Japan in those days.
You learned your social place.
Yes.
Basically.
How you should roll in that kind of.
Yeah, that's definitely interesting, because I guess for me, middle school was just really about finding your lane, right? And finding your ways to kind of express yourself. So you're like, oh, I have to try everything. And I feel like because I went to a fine art school, because I had to do like modern dance, I had to do art, both like painting and digital art. I did choir, I did, what else did I do? I feel like I did like a lot of things, but only like one or two things really stuck with me. And then I feel like when it comes to Japan, it really is, like you said, okay, now in elementary school, you had your freedom, you're good. But now, you know, this is the system.
Definitely.
I mean, you were talking a little bit about trends, Mac. I mean, now I'm like, I don't even remember. I mean, I know that like trading different Pokemon cards was popular among some kids at my school, but I can't honestly remember what was trendy at that time. It's like, I do remember that was a period where Well, I feel like nowadays, I think a lot of people are more into like K-pop and whatever.
Yeah.
But at that time, like J-pop, J-rock were like super, super, super popular. And so it was like, I think like Ayumi had become really popular. And people were like, people who were into like J-rock was like L'Arc-en-Ciel and but then like that's also just before the like explosion of like the mega girl groups, because at that time you had these like 7 or 15 girl mega groups that were like super poppy. And it's almost like kind of like a pop factory type thing, because I felt
pop factory.
I felt like every year there was a new major girl group that came out, and it was a competition to like who can stay relevant, because one of my friends was like really, really into like Amuro Namie, and other people were like, oh, she's so old already. And I was like, she's 26. What do you mean she's so old? But she had been singing since she was 15. So they were saying like, she's not relevant because she's been doing it for too long and she's not new anymore. So that was kind of an interesting thing. In Thailand, there was 2 major music labels. And so they were kind of similar idea. Like they were like, the equivalent of today's like idol factories type of thing. Like they would pick up some teenage kid who was like vaguely attractive and be like, oh, we can groom them into a certain look and type. And so it was like RS Star and GMM Grammy were the 2 main like labels. And then artists who would come out of that and people would follow them. And it got to be a camp. It's like, it's like DC versus Marvel, except it was like RS versus GMM Grammy. And I was just like, I don't understand. Like I might like one artist and not another one, or I might not like them at all because they all sound the same. But that I feel like that was what we were into. And I think like people were just starting to download MP3s. I feel like
yes,
so,
LimeWire,
right, or Napster at that time.
Napster. Okay, that brings me back.
Yeah, so people were like, I can get free music. We weren't really talking about pirating or anything at the time. So it was like, oh, I've discovered all of this new world of music that the internet has provided to me for free. And that's what we were doing in middle school. That and secretly chatting on ICQ, because my parents did not like me going online and chatting with strangers, but I felt so cool having my own online anonymous account. Yeah.
Oh.
That was my middle school years. I feel like I'm dating myself so much. I'm like throwing out references, and some people will be like, I Napster?
It's okay. I understand. The show was like, what are these these ancient technologies?
Records.
Well, about trends, maybe that's more in high school for me. So maybe, yeah, I'll like talk about that in high school.
Okay, yeah, we can enter high school. Yeah, let's, so trends in high school. Tell us a little bit about what's going on.
So in high school, we got like more freedom. We usually, we can go out and like after school, we go out and like have lunch or have dinner somewhere near, there was like a shopping center. We go there, and there was this culture called JK culture.
JK, oh, I know.
JK stands for Joshi Kosei. That means Japanese high school girls. JK culture is a very popular thing, and we also call it Hana no 17. It means like the most shining, blooming age is the 17. We're having so much fun. Well, especially for Japanese high school girls, we kind of rearrange our school uniform, like cutting our skirts a little bit shorter and like wearing different like ribbons and putting our hair up and
personalizing it a little bit.
Yeah, personalizing. And then like there's this photo taking machine called Purikura.
Yep.
Yeah, we take those, and yeah, we did so much crazy things in during high school, and I guess it was like yeah, it was super fun. But yeah, if I think about it today, it's like, oh, what am I doing?
Don't worry, it's the same for everybody. You're like, man, back then it was great. And you think about it, it's like, I can never bring this up ever again.
We were talking about
it was fun.
I think the sticker photo booth thing that was super popular in Thailand probably came because we have, especially in Bangkok, we have a lot of Japanese expats. And so like a lot of the trends that were popular in Japan at the time came to Bangkok. I mean, maybe it came to Bangkok like 2 years later, I feel like, but still. And I remember like, I saved so much pocket money to take those photos because it's like you had to collect like photos with friends and you had these mini albums to like, here's one photo. You were trading photos like trading cards.
Oh no.
Yeah, it was just like, oh, hey, did you see this one? Oh, that's very cute. I want one of those. Oh, here's one. And so you take like strips of photos, but like, if you think about it, if you're going out with your friends after school and every weekend, and every time you're going out, or maybe like every other time you're going out, you're taking photos, it's a lot of money after a while. You just these photos. And I can't even remember where I kept them now, but like it's a little strange if you think about it. I'm like, oh, look, I have a bunch of photos of 16-year-old kids. It's a little strange from that perspective.
Do you get like photos from people you completely don't know, or like, yes?
Well, that's the fun. It's like it's trading, right?
Not necessarily it's like, oh, here's my friend's photo, but it's like sometimes you're just trading photos with your friends, and we don't always know everyone's friends. So eventually you wind up with like, here's a group photo, like there's 4 girls and I know one of them. Or I'll look back at an album and I'm like, I think I went to school with this person, but I don't know who it is. Yeah.
That's so
But it is funny. I feel like there was something similar to that in the US too, though, because like we would get like those little wallet photos, like for like not just like your prom or your formal, but like even just like, oh, we went and took a wallet photo at the mall, and like you're giving your friends your wallet photos. The same like generic backdrop and like spotlighting. Yeah.
I usually Oh, I was just gonna say, I usually got those at at prom or toward the end of like graduation, where people are like, oh, I'll like, I mean, there's also the yearbook, but people also gave like wallet size photos with like their signature on it.
Yeah.
So there's no prom in Japan, so I'd love to like hear about the prom. How was prom?
We're planning the whole year for it, yeah.
Prom. I mean, for me, it was, I guess for prom, usually I think it's only like 11th and 12th graders, right, Elizabeth?
Yeah, unless one of them invited someone. It's like,
okay.
Oh no, a senior's dating like a sophomore, so they invite their sophomore like girlfriend, boyfriend to prom or something like that.
Yep. So I guess I don't want to say invite only, but yeah, it's usually only for 12th and 11th. But of course, you can invite someone from the lower grades, right? I guess one of the big things before prom is, how can I describe it? It's like, okay, so the process is, of course, you have to scope out like your date a few months like out, right? Because you do not want to, you don't want to be, I mean, of course, you can go with your friends. It's completely okay to go with your friends. A lot of people do that. But you gotta try to get a date at least. Then you're scouting, right? And then after you scout, then there's a thing called the Grand March. And so the Grand March is where everyone, wears their best dress. They meet up at school, and then it's kind of like a fashion show for prom.
Is it on the day of prom?
I think it's the day before. Yeah. I don't think it's the same day.
Yeah. And these kind of habits are a little bit different around different parts of the country. Yeah. So, but it's kind of it's a show off all the folks kind of deal. I do think that it was funny because some people made really elaborate, like junior and senior year, I had come back to the US, and that was a little bit strange for me. So like for me, it was just like, oh, okay, I got asked to prom. Like it wasn't a like, oh, who am I gonna like? I didn't quite understand the culture of like planning for all this, but some of the ways I think people asked each other to prom felt almost like more elaborate than marriage proposals. Like
It's true. It's
like it's such a big deal, and I didn't understand it because like in Thailand we had kind of like obligatory school dances, and some of them were more formal, like end of year. But like our school dances were like, you know, a committee of students and a teacher got together and supervised decorating our gym. And then we got together and like there were still certain rules in place. Like the only reason we went to the school dances is because it was exciting to hang out with each other, not in uniform. And then like we had a formal at the end of the year at the international school, and sometimes it would be really nice. It'd be like, oh, here's a local hotel or whatever, and we get but like Thai formal looks very different than like American formals. Like I feel like American, especially like at school level, like Thai formal wear, whether you were still in school or as an adult, generally is kind of similar in style. Like it is the same kind of formal wear, and it's a little bit more conservative, and it's what you would wear out if you were going to, whether it's prom, a banquet, a gala, you know, it's the same type of formal wear. Whereas like in the US, I think it can range from like incredibly sexy to incredibly cheesy.
Yes.
And like and especially at the school level, a lot of times it was incredibly cheesy. I'm like, that's a prom dress, that is a rented prom tux. Like it will not fit in any venue except for winter formal or prom. Like that's it. Like no one would ever wear a poofy floral whatever thing ever again except for prom, and some of the colors and whatever. Like it's a very occasion specific thing, and you know, it's like, oh, all of these boys went to the same store to rent their tux. Like it's very, I feel like it's very specific, and it's almost like a style you have to go with. If you went for like classy, like more adult style, like classic elegance, you might even be considered like underdressed for prom because it wasn't statement enough. I don't know.
Yeah, you got to show out, right? It's the last party of the year. You could never see these people again, so it's you know, you got to go out with a bang, right?
So it's in the very end of the semester or something?
It's the end of the year. Yeah.
It's end of the year.
So it's like very much like it's senior prom, and so juniors might be invited, but like it is the last party of all these students, and then they go to college or whatever else. Yeah.
I've only seen it in like movies, Western movies, and usually it's like really over, made it big, right?
I mean, it is, right? Yeah. So, but yeah, it's the last party of the year, and then you know, then it's time to kind of say your goodbyes, and then you know, because I think it's in May usually, and then we have our graduations in June. Yeah.
Is it only in high school? No, not in university.
I think it depends, but there's no formal proms in university. There might be like, people might have like a winter formal depending on, but it's like club based. It's not hosted by the school.
So especially if you're in one of the very well-known sororities or fraternities, like a nationwide or even a worldwide organization, then they might have a thing of like, you know, they have their yearly chapter house, like gala or whatever, where, you know, it is. And the older those organizations are, the more ritual and expectation surrounds it. So like, you know, the newer / smaller / less formalized, like sororities, fraternities might just be like end of year party or, you know, midterm party, whereas like the very, very formal ones, it's like, no, our house has been decked out to whatever, and there's entrance procedures and assigned seats, and you know, you take your table cards and whatever else. So it's very different, but it's club based and club rules. So, and some might not have any at all. So
Yep.
Actually, I'd like to kind of go back to talking about like high school a little bit. So I'm not sure how it is in Japan and how formalized it is. I know like in some countries, like in US, it's where you go to school is very much like district based. Like you live here, you go to the school, you live here, you go to the school, and very few neighborhoods allow you to kind of go to other ones unless it's a private or charter type school. And then I know like when my mother was talking about when she was growing up in Singapore, what school and what class you got to depended on like entrance exams. So like I don't know how that is in Japan. Like is it score determine where you go to school?
Yeah, so entrance exam is a very big thing in Japan. And so there is middle school until there's a local middle school that everyone can go until middle school, but so everyone has to attend an entrance exam if they want to go to high school.
Oh, everybody.
Everybody. So from like third grade in middle school, they start to study for the entrance exam, and we can go to both like private or public school, and it really depends on how well you do on the test. And sometimes grades at your middle school depend kind of is but it's mainly because how well you do on the test. So everyone like studies so much for like a year or maybe 2 or 3 years, and they go to like cram school, which is like you go to a school where you learn more after school so you can get a good score and you can do well on the entrance exam. And even some people take these entrance exam when they're graduating like elementary school. They start to go to private school from middle school, then they take an entrance exam. And even some little kids they take entrance exam to enter elementary school. So like for some students, if they want to go to a private good elementary school, they have these entrance exam. They go with their parents and they have this interview. And so entrance exam is a really very I think it's similar in China or in Korea maybe, and I think it's more severe there, but yes, in Japan it's a bit competitive to get in a good school.
You said it's primarily about how well they do on tests, but I guess from the student's perspective, is it more about like the prestige of getting into certain schools, or is it more like, oh no, I want to get into the same schools as my friends, or what's the motivation? Because I mean, I'm sure not everybody's like, I want to prove I'm super smart. Like, there's people who have different goals.
So high school, there isn't that much there's this chart where there's like how smart this school is. So it maybe for like, if you get in a very smart high school, you have a better chance to get in a better university. So maybe most people kind of think about how smart that high school is. And of course, like location, we usually take trains to get there. So if we go to a very far high school, that might be really hard. Usually we all go from our house to our high school. We don't get in the dorm or anything, so location is really important. And also, like we talked about school uniforms, some people choose because that school has a really cute school uniform, or like also about if the rule is strict or not. Like sometimes some schools, the school rules are like super strict, so like you can
I don't want to go there.
Yeah, that's much loser or something. Yes.
Yeah, we could definitely tell the difference. In Thailand, public schools generally have the same. I mean, you can still tell different schools, but the uniforms are pretty similar across public schools. So there's like a type of uniform when you're elementary school, and there's a type of uniform when you're middle school, and there's a type of uniform when you're high school, and then a different type of uniform when you're in university. Usually, it's like the shape and the length. But international schools, our uniforms could vary really differently because they're all private, so they can decide and you can always tell who's from what school based on their uniform, not just like the logo, but also like the shape and cut and color of it. But you're talking about modifying uniforms, like we even had like idea of like the reputation of students at whatever school. It's like, oh, the girls at this school are super slutty because they put their skirts up to here, and then they put a tank top that squeezes everything in and unbuttons the shirts down to here. So like they have a reputation around their school uniform too, whereas certain schools is like, oh no, their uniform's very boring, and their principal comes with a ruler to measure your skirt.
Yes.
It's like even the culture around the prestige of your school uniform and how much you can modify it, but also things like you can tell a certain school has money because their uniforms look fancier than another school or whatever. So it's like extra preppy. You have a jacket with an embroidered logo.
I think there was actually a scandal. I don't know a scandal, but like it was kind of there's kind of a debate going on with like Japanese uniforms, and I think there was one school who had like Armani bags, and it was costing the kids like, I don't know, like maybe $1,000 or more. And like they were like, the parents can't afford this, like this is, why do they need this? And so like you're saying, that prestige, that status of going to that particular school really plays into it, but there's got to be like a limit.
Yes. Yeah. So like one benefit of a school uniform is like so even if you don't have a lot of clothes, you can have a school uniform, and you can you don't really get be judged with what you're wearing. So I think that's a really good point about school uniform. But if it really can change how the school is looked by others. So very important thing. School uniform.
Interesting. Do you get into more specialized tracks and fields of study in high school in Japan?
It really differs for which high school you go to, but I guess mainly there's like a curriculum. You learn all the subjects like Japanese, math, social study, science, and so there's an entrance exam for university. So there's like a list of things that you have to learn, so you can take the test. So it's not that specialized yet. I think it gets specialized from university in Japan.
Okay. Yeah, I know in my international school, that part of it was standardized. So because it's international school, and ours followed the Cambridge system, so we did our IGCSEs and IB, so International Baccalaureate, and so each of those is a 2-year certificate and a 2-year certificate. And because of that, like starting in IGCSEs, you already said like, yes, you have to take at least one art, one science, and one social science, but you get to specialize your track for the 2 years and say, I want to take chemistry, and I want to take theater, drama, and I want to take geography, and that becomes your thing. And then you have another couple free slots where you can decide if you want to take an additional subject. So you still have your base, like your language, your foreign language, your math, your whatever, but on top of that you can specialize which science and which other track, with the assumption that you already learned your general sciences and your general arts earlier on. But the IB program is where that becomes more serious, because that your coursework goes toward your certificate at the end. So it is a continuous process of, you pick your thing, you pick your research coursework at regular intervals throughout those 2 years. So every semester your stuff gets sent off to England to be graded by Cambridge, and then they send it back and they give you feedback and you refine your coursework. So it's like a 2-year your whole body of work is your grade at the end of not just like an exam. And that if you wanted to go to university in England, that's what would actually determine where you land there and what schools might accept you. And I think in like that was just our high school, and that's your basic sort of international school system. But when I came to the US, I found out that translated into college credits in some situations. It was the equivalent of like taking an AP class.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was like, oh, okay, so our regular school program was an equivalent of taking an extra credit for a college credit type class, or 1 or 2 units. Okay, I don't know. And like in the US, like the AP classes, I feel like are where people buy their tracks. Like I want to focus extra on this piece.
AT class.
I'm talking over you guys.
Like there's no AT classes like in Japan. So what kind of classes are there? AT classes?
AP means advanced
Oh,
placement.
AP.
Matt, you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so so I guess for us, the transfer between high school and university, you know, the college will, you know, requires you to take certain classes, right, to meet certain standards. And then once you get in, right, then if you have classes like the AP classes where they are taught at a collegiate level, you can apply those credits to your university credits. That way you can start with kind of like a leg up, if that makes sense. So if you take enough AP classes, you could potentially graduate maybe 1 or 2 years earlier compared to if you didn't.
So
yeah, and oh, sorry, go ahead.
So there's classes you need to take to try to get into that university, or
no, it's not necessary. It's based on the individual. So if you are like, hey, I want to get a leg up, I want to get a head start, you can apply for AP classes and you can take them.
So there's a lot of classes that you can take or like choose from.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, correct. Yeah.
Yeah. And the biggest thing they make a difference in like the combination of your grade point average and your standardized scores. So we don't really have entrance exams for university in the US, but like your standardized scores on your SATs or SAT2s and stuff like that are the equivalent, but it's not for any particular, you know, it's kind of across the board. But when you have that and you combine with AP classes, and that's when, you know, you can do your fancy math because they're considered taught at a collegiate level, you're weighted out of 5 instead of weighted out of 4. So you have these people who've taken all these AP classes. I'm like, how the heck did they graduate with a 4.8 GPA? How is that possible? It's out of 4. Oh, it's good. You know,
it's like, I understand.
There's their unweighted GPA and their weighted GPA. And, you know, some people are like, oh, I have a 4.9. I'm like, that's like saying I have 100 and, you know, what? Over 100%. I don't. But you know that those combinations will get you a leg up into, so both to get into the university you want, but also once you get in, you can skip some of your general education classes because you already have credits to apply towards. So you might even graduate early from university because you have extra credits.
Yep.